Jennifer Salke of Amazon Studios is out as head of that department. What's interesting about this is that I think most people that follow channels like this know her from is she's the one who really brokered that deal that turned Rings of Power into the absolute dumpster fire that it ended up becoming. You know what I'm talking about.
It's so bad.
It's so bad. But what they're saying now is it's actually going to be most likely the fact that she wasn't able to capitalize on the purchase of MGM and James Bond, that is the reason why she is out. So I have a question to you guys first and foremost. Like, does it interest you to see a studio like Amazon do something like James Bond, even if they're doing it in theaters?
Here's the thing. I remember when Amazon bought Lord of the Rings, like at least the stuff for Rings of Power.
Yeah.
And I remember the two big houses involved were Amazon. It was either going to go to Amazon or Disney. And I was like, oh, thank God. Yeah. Oh, thank God Amazon got it. Now I wish Paramount had got it at this point. That's where I'm at. Like,
everything should go to Universal. Universal is like the only really good studio left.
Well, that's the thing is it's kind of exemplary of the changing of the guard that's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, all the old studios died in the, 60s, and then the new ones took over in the 70s, or at least the ones that could revitalize took over in the 70s. Now it's a new changing of the guard. All the old studios are either being bought or dying off, and Amazon is essentially the new MGM.
They suck at it. Here, I will say this. As far as movies go, I'm willing to give them a shot, but what they did with Rings of Power was so bad.
How many other Amazon shows have you watched?
I'm trying to think. Man in the High Castle, which again, really great show for 2 seasons.
But that wasn't Amazon when it was made, wasn't it? No,
it was not FX. It was.
Yeah, that was on a network.
It was a
I thought Man in the High Castle was Amazon originally.
No. So here's the other thing. Before we get into all of that, I will say that Amazon does well when they're doing dad TV, like The Terminalist or Reacher, shows that they don't feel like
Reacher. I think is solid.
But those are shows that they don't feel like has any cultural influence, so they leave it alone, as opposed to the bigger productions which they tend to get involved with. But it's not just that. So she had problems with Barbara Broccoli. They did not get along. She wanted to. Now this is Jennifer Salke I'm talking about right now. Is the lady who wanted to turn Amazon's James Bond into a female-led series that was Marvel-esque with tons of spin-offs and diverse casts. When Barbara Broccoli was like, I can't believe these idiots. I can't work with these people. Yeah. And Jeff Bezos had to step in and say, pay them whatever they want. Just get rid of Barbara Broccoli. I want to be able to make the things that I want to make. But even then, you're not going to be able to do that because there's going to be pushback for something like that. I am going to read the press release. The notice from Amazon. So this is what they said. Dear team. Okay, let me put it here. Since joining Amazon in 2018, Jen Salke has been a driving force in Amazon MGM Studios' evolution into what it is today, a world-class producer of award-winning films and series viewed by hundreds of millions of our customers around the world. Original films and series served as the foundation of Prime Video's growth into the world's leading entertainment destinations. I love how every company can just kind of claim that they're the number one in something.
Yeah.
They go on. And Jen's leadership is an undisputed driver of that success we've had in the space for years. Having accomplished so much as an executive, Jen has decided that her next challenge and chapter will be on the production side, with the aim of getting even closer to the global creative community. What this is sounding like to me was the Jeremy Boring exit at the Daily Wire just like a week ago. Very rarely do executives at that high of a level, get pushed or just decide to step down into a creative position. They may be interested in that, and I do believe that Jeremy Boring specifically actually did want to get involved in the creative stuff, but you don't give up power of your own volition. That's not a thing. There's a 20 here from Pop Culture Junkie. He's our #1 insider in the industry. He says, how much money Amazon has lost on the Tolkien IP is one of the best kept secrets. A source has told me that it's a number that would cause a stockholder rebellion with torches and pitchforks, like the end of Young Frankenstein.
Dude, I'm telling you, if it weren't for the fact that Amazon Prime is really useful for shipping, that would have been a show that made me cancel my membership.
That bad, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Why, you are a major target.
Oh, my God. You look at the movies made 25 years ago, And the quality, the attention to detail, the writing, the faithfulness, because there are a few places, don't get me wrong, where Peter Jackson did diverge a little bit. But for the most part, you can tell that they really wanted to stick with the story as given by Tolkien. And the Amazon writers were just like, that old white guy from the middle of the century? No, I can do better than him.
I want to point out that they paid $8.5 billion for MGM.
And they
deserve above market,
to lose it all.
And that's above market value. And the first thing, the number one thing they seemed to criticize in all of the articles was her inability to turn that purchase into anything memorable. So the one thing that's come out since purchasing... When did
they buy MGM?
It was like 3 years ago now. The number one thing that they talk about is they made a James Bond game show. That's it.
Was the point of buying MGM to acquire James Bond?
James Bond, yeah. Like none of the other properties are going to be...
I had no idea they had bought James Bond that long ago.
Yeah. Well, I can double check on that.
I believe it.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, they just ended the series, the rebooted series. What? How many years ago was that now? So
2021.
Yeah, so it's going to be at least another couple years before they even begin to revisit it.
They haven't even selected a Bond yet.
Okay.
But still, that's 2 or 3 years ago. It shouldn't take you 3 years to start at the very least the casting process.
Exactly. Like we should know who Bond is going to be.
Pre-production. Yes.
Well, I think the reason for the holdout is kind of what happened between. I guess it wasn't that big of a change, but for me, I would imagine the way they ended the last one was so unique.
I didn't see the last one.
Do you know how it ended?
No.
Can we get into spoilers about that?
Let's not.
Okay.
But
because it was an ending that no other Bond film has had up until now. And I think they need a cultural reset.
Probably know.
Yeah.
I don't. I need to watch the Bond films. And I need to watch the Mission Impossible films.
Yes.
Like all the way through. At least the Daniel Craig Bond films.
Start with Pierce Brosnan at least.
There's
I don't know.
so
He's my favorite.
So here's
my
the thing.
point was going to be like, we should by this point know what the next Bond film is going to be, and who Bond is.
So it says, according to Deadline, what sealed the fate for Salke was, who came from a TV background, is that she clashed with Amy Pascal and David Heyman and the longtime Bond producer Barbara Broccoli. Under Salke's leadership, Amazon developed Rings of Power, The Wheel of Time, Reacher, Jack Ryan, The Boys. So notice the last three there are actually fairly successful and well liked. I mean, The Boys is kind of...
Except for The Boys, which has...
No, that started very well liked.
It did, and then I have a feeling her influence is the reason that it went from being like, this is a... good satire to this is just wailing you over the head with the point.
I don't know anybody that liked Wheel of Time, despite it getting tons of seasons.
Yeah, I never even watched
Pascal and Heyman also said to have negotiated with former Warner Brothers film executive Courtney Valenti, who had been working with Salke. Salke's role won't be replaced, as Valenti will now report directly to MGM Studios. So they're just gonna not have a head of studios. They're just going to have a head of Amazon. And what I said they should do, guys, what they should do is Jeff Bezos should turn himself into Stan Lee and have a cameo in every single thing that Amazon makes, and it should be made with AI just to annoy everybody.
I will say this.
Yeah.
The reason I didn't watch Wheel of Time on Amazon was Rings of Power.
What was it even about?
It's another story. It's another adaptation of a series of novels, of fantasy novels.
Got it.
But the point is,
she did such a bad. They did so bad with Rings of Power that I've never read Wheel of Time. I don't have the attachment to Wheel of Time that I do Lord of the Rings, but they handled it so badly that I'm not gonna watch Wheel of Time.
The high-priced Lord of the Rings of Power weren't game-changing enough to cover off an executive who spent a lot of money with not enough results. I mean, one of the hardest things for people to really grasp, and I still don't really understand it fully, is what do you quantify as results for streaming, given the fact that how do you prove numbers gained? I guess you could go just by the number of subscribers that may have signed up around the time.
I'm sure they have internal metrics about viewership and things like that.
And whatever those metrics are, it was never going to be worth it given the amount of money. It was $700 or $800 million that was spent just for the Rings of Power.
Well, at this point, everything's diminishing returns.
Yeah, my guess is that they expected Rings of Power to be the top Amazon show.
Yeah.
And it is near the bottom.
Yep.
So that's probably what it was, I would think.
Yeah.
Because if Rings of Power was up at the top and the rest of Amazon's material wasn't cutting it, they wouldn't be looking at Rings of Power as a failure.
They also... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm surprised that it was 3 flops instead of 1 that got her canned, because this is... I mean, Hollywood's a fickle mistress. This is typical. John Travolta had a 10-year span where he did not get work.
I mean, yeah,
because one film did badly.
Nowadays, though, when it comes to executives, they fail up. I don't see executives as the type of people that fail and lose work. They end up failing upwards.
Which I still don't understand.
Yeah.
I think it's primarily because they're able to can it off onto the creatives like they always have. But yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that because even like everything that's going with Kathleen Kennedy and like other people in this area, like I think everybody's just kind of realizing it's a changing of the tide, and corporate moves slow.
It would help if they actually had people who like read the source material write anything ever.
You know who should really be scared is Star Wars fans. What if they just plucked Salke out and put her in charge of Star Wars?
God. Well, she's sticking with Amazon, right?
Yeah. Well, they said she wants to get into producing. That's like when they're talking about Kathleen Kennedy, who says, "I'm not retiring." What that really means is she's still going to make movies. She just might not be the head of Lucasfilm for very much longer.
Which I don't get why they're having such a hard time with Star Wars either. All you need to do to make Star Wars is look at the first three, go what worked, and go from there.
They tried to
Stop
do
trying
that
to reinvent the wheel.
They tried to do that with The Force Awakens, and it was too close to the original, and then everybody complained about it.
So that's the thing is, like, I complained about Force Awakens. When I saw Force Awakens, my feeling walking out of the theater, and my friend Sedona felt the same way. And this is the thing, I went to see it with, like, 5 people.
Yeah.
1 liked it, 2 loved it, and then we were both kind of like, at the very best, it was okay.
I think the primary issue is because we now live in an era where, like, think about No Country for Old Men, which is not a particularly new movie at this point, but we live in an era that is all about inversion. You know, that was Rian Johnson's whole thing with The Last Jedi, and obviously it didn't work.
That's deconstruction.
I think
Exactly.
Abrams was okay. Johnson killed the series.
We need to exit the age of deconstruction. I want to go through a couple of the reactions that I found slightly entertaining here. You guys might find these entertaining as well. Just give me one second here. So Nerdrotic says the studio head who brought us the abomination known as the Rings of Power is gone. Nature is healing. This one says, this is from someone says, I have to imagine that Jennifer Salke was forced out to some degree. You can't burn roughly $700 million of someone else's money on one failure of a project and continue to work for them. Well, here's the thing. Like, that depends on what studio you're talking about. As tech companies take over more and more of the entertainment space, they have money to burn. Like if you saw the report we talked about last week, Apple TV loses them like $1 billion a year, but Apple profits $93 billion a year. It's a rounding error for them.
Yeah.
And I give them credit as much as I hate Apple TV to like they stand on business and just continue losing money on new stuff that nobody watches. Everyone's like, oh, it's great. I'm like, well, if a tree falls in the forest.
See, I don't understand how the streamers didn't adopt that like method early on.
Like only creating new content?
Well, not even that. It's good. Like Netflix should have recognized in 2012 that the reason they make money is because people want to watch Friends and they want to watch etc. They understood that. But it seems like they keep doing the quantity over quality thing. What they really should have been doing is, hey, people come every day to watch the shows they love, whether or not we make good shows. So why don't we, instead of making a bunch of shows that very few people will watch, call it even for whatever we make from people coming to watch Friends or whatever show is currently on there, and use that as a budget to then create new things and just cap that at that.
But it's worked for Netflix. So if you go by,
but has it worked for Netflix?
Yes.
Not raising their prices again.
No, yes, it has worked for Netflix, and I'll tell you why. If we're going solely off of actual viewership, if you look up the number, like the metrics from Samba TV, every single week they release a top 10 list of all of the most watched shows on streaming, and every single week, consistently, 7 of 10 of those are Netflix shows. Netflix is synonymous with like Xerox.
And are they new shows though?
Yes, they are. Like I mean, that doesn't matter. No,
but you're also
like,
first. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Half of those are new, and the other half are ones that are licensed to them.
Yes, but the point that's a first and best dressed issue.
The for them, if it's season 2 of I don't even know what the most recent ones are. It'd be interesting to look it up what it is right now. But for the most part, most of them are new. And they don't like in the stuff that they license. They're licensing now. They're so far ahead that Warner Brothers and HBO has had to like rent out or license out a bunch of their content because they can't keep up with what Netflix has been producing. And Netflix is always producing new content that ends up like you go look at the numbers for like hours viewed, and it dwarfs even the most even the highest numbers from these other studios because Netflix is the default.
They're not.
No, they are not. They are profitable. Netflix is a profitable studio. It's the only of the streamers that, the studio may be in debt, but it's the only streaming service that's profitable consistently quarter to quarter.
But they're also now going to a platform that is supported by ads at the lower tiers, or you've got it's up to like what, $40 a month?
They're doing that on purpose.
Tier?
That is every single one of these streaming services' goal is to push you to the ad
I know,
tier.
but that's the thing is like that means that it's not working. They have to go to ads.
I mean, all of them do. That's virtue of the media.
Well, that's the thing is I think what's working right now, if you look at the studios that it's working for, is Paramount. Paramount stuff goes onto live TV, to network TV, and then it goes to streaming the same day.
That's because it's connected to CBS.
But that's what's working best.
An affiliate.
And if you look at Paramount stuff, I would say Paramount, as far as streaming services goes, has the best lineup out there.
The worst player. The worst actual user interface. We missed a 20 here from Crandall Logan. Says, something, blame fans, something, sexism, with not liking Guy Ladriel. Also, I work graves and should be sleeping, but wanted to see Aiden's again. Question, are we at the point where there are no good ideas?
No.
There's endless good ideas. The difference is, will the studios actually approve of that idea unless it's connected to something that's already been created? Type of
they will IP. Always be risk averse because that's the nature of business.
It's why I actually always take the studio side because I get annoyed when the creatives are like, "Why won't you give me money for my niche project?" I'm like, "Because make it yourself."
No, that's also why.
That's the thing that you can't.
But the other thing is that's why the best directors that we know of, the thing that doesn't get talked about Spielberg, Scorsese, all of these different people who made amazing films was because they're also amazing businessmen. Like behind the scenes, they know not only how to raise money, but they know how to get people in seats. Like, yes, they tell good stories and they tell the stories for the sake of the stories, but they say no to certain ideas of their own because they recognize no one will ever watch this.
Well, I mean, Lucas had to have people pull him in, right? Like he like once the original trilogy was done and we got to the prequels and there wasn't the people to tell him no, then it got, in most people's opinion, they're not nearly as good as the original films. I was going to go through a couple more of these. This one says, Amazon's agreement with the Tolkien estate entails a 5-season commitment. With Salke gone and the show bleeding money from the studio, I imagine the folks at Amazon want to alter the contract with the estate, or as I've said previously, they intend to slash the budget. It'd be funny if it just becomes a fan film in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is, they could have just bothered to invest in costume design instead of having costumes that look like they're out of a Spirit Halloween.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.